Good evening. On the channel First UA, we continue our project Smart Ukraine. On studio, Doctor of Law Vladimir Lipkan and my guest, German Defense Attaché Christian Farkande.
Good evening.
Good evening. The first question what I want to thank is, you know about hybrid war, but I want to talk about smart power. Smart power was developed by Susan Nosel and Joseph Nye. As we know, the most common understanding we may conclude in such words is following one. To win the peace, we will have to show as much skill in exercises soft power as it has in using hard power to win the war. Can we describe and explain what is the difference between hybrid war and smart power in today?
Okay. So first of all, you know, hybrid war, as we see it, is now used from the pro-separatist armed groups and they're backing power Russia. So they show the whole world what is hybrid war. One of the main facts of them is propaganda, which is not based all the time on facts. It's very often, you know, based on not true, stories. And so propaganda is something we had in the past, and we see it now on such an extent. I never would believe that I would see it.
Okay, you talk about propaganda. So my next question is, how does Russian Federation carry out its propaganda campaign on brainwashing of the citizens of Europe, first of all of the Germany?
You know, I think because after more than 25 years of the breakdown of the Soviet Union, not many Germans understand still or consume, you know, Russian mass media, but their influence is on other channels. They are very smart and they're using also German language or even English language and other channels to influence us through social media and many others. So the official Russian media is consumed, for sure. A lot of people understand. In Germany also Russian TV, they use it because they are former German Russian citizen who went 20 years ago approximately, or 10, 15 years ago, to Germany. They are consuming this propaganda. But the other is made from Petersburg or Moscow through other channels, like I said, through internet, social media and other things.
Okay, can you give us particular examples of this?
Yeah, for example,
what do you mean about propaganda?
Yeah, I saw it on my own eyes, you know, because I traveled by car from Berlin to Kiev. And I saw then this border crossing between Poland and Ukraine, which I know by my own eyes. And there was a long queue of cars and many people are waiting. And it was shown on Russian TV that from Donbass, 100,000 people who live in Donbass are fleeing to Russia. But I could recognize that this is the border crossing to Poland and not to Russia.
Very good. Okay. According to your answer, one of your deputies of Bundestag from Christian Democracy Unit, Norbert Raudgen, urged to resist Russian information propaganda. In particular, in Deutsche Welle, he said that Russian propaganda wants to separate us. We must fight against it. Tell us, please, how exactly do you fight with it and what methods and resources do you use? Because information operations and information society, it's a very new phenomenon in our...
As I said, the Russian propaganda is most dangerous for Russian people on their own because they believe the wrong things. Second, from people who are living in Donbass or Crimea. And third, also for many people who are living in Ukraine, because they consume this Russian propaganda most. As I said, on German channels is more through social media and more smart. So they should be most aware of this propaganda. But on the other hand, you are right, we should not answer propaganda with our propaganda. We should answer it with news, information which are based on facts. Because in Western society, every lie comes out within days, weeks, or even hours. So you can not keep in an open Western society any secret.
Okay, I want to show the first video with Sarah Wagenknecht. Please tell us first video and we will show. This is a linke Deputate from Bundestag, Sarah Wagenknecht. She said that Nazi militaries are taking part on Ukrainian border. At the same time, she uses very accurate words to describe Russian terrorist troops. Don't you think that this lady, this person, issue irresponsible statements which are the part of Russian propaganda? And a lot of deputies shake hands for her.
First of all, you know, it's part of a democracy that you have in a parliament a wide variety of different opinions and meanings. And I think in your parliament, the Communist Party is not anymore part of your parliament, but they would, you know...
They don't win the election. They don't win.
Exactly, and they would
they may do it.
Have maybe similar positions. So, and we have to accept that in German parliament, people who are voting for these parties, and because they express the opinion of their voters, and that must not be your opinion, and it can be at that case that is similar to many opinions in Russia, or even what the government, but you have to accept that because it's part of democracy. Yeah.
Yes, I understand, part of democracy. But don't you think that this part is not European part? This part is a Russian part. It's part of Russian propaganda. Sarah Wagenknecht said that Germans don't need weapons. The Germans don't need a large army. The Germans don't need a special forces.
Yeah. As I said,
is it truth? Is it reality?
No, you know, as you know, I'm military, and I know, and the majority of our population, and also the majority in our parliament, and that means our government, is convinced that Germany needs for self-defense to protect the territorial integrity of the country and the German interest, armed forces. And today, special forces are playing a more and more important role because we do not have the wars like we have in the First or Second War with mass armies. Now special forces are getting more and more important, and for sure special forces are part also of the German army. But you see, that is real democracy, that we still accept that people in our society have a different opinion, but we do not put them on jail or something. They can speak openly in parliament, but the chance for them to win the majority in German parliament, I think, is very limited.
Okay, you talk about special forces.
If
you touch this topic, what do you think? Special forces, it must be a part of Ministry of Defense, or it have to be a separate part of executive branch?
No, special forces in most NATO countries, they are part of the armed forces. They should be separate from Army, Air Force, and Navy and other special services, but they should be highly trained and be part, because there are more and more cases which you need this kind of special forces, because recently French special forces in Mali freed a European citizen who was captured there for 4 years, and for this special operation, because more and more countries are deteriorating around the world, and it's likely that your citizens are getting captured by different groups in Africa or Asia, and you need special forces to free them, for example. Still, when you live in a peacetime establishment, you need them. Okay,
what do you think about special information operations? It's a part of special forces, or it's a special part, separate part?
No, it's a separate part information, because special forces, they do the real hard stuff. But besides that, if you, for example, are working in a hostile environment, you have to win the hearts and minds of the citizens who want to free, and help, and assist, like in Afghanistan. And for that, you create also information operation that is unarmed. Yeah? That has to be a whole concept. But this kind of information operation is going through medias and so on, and it's nothing to do with a special operation which are doing the hard stuff. But it can be a combination of both of them, and it's like in a concert, you know, everybody plays a different instrument, but important is that all instrument plays the same melody.
Okay. If we're talking about information operation, do you have in Germany cyber war
We have in Germany anti-cyber
or cyber military forces? I
yeah.
mean this.
No, we have information operational forces, as I said, to shape also the information battleground. That is very important. And concerning cyber war, we have a center to fight against cyber, because cyber war, we saw several examples, for example, in Estonia or even in the United States. So cyber war will in future be more and more important. And as we talked, propaganda is getting more and more important because we are living now in information technological history period. And everyday information is getting more important, and cyber war is getting more and more dangerous. But we have a small center, and luckily until now we had no major breach. But there are also in Germany many attacks on governmental security, and especially you know that we have a very high standard in Germany concerning our economical power, and that is the main focus also of cyber war.
Do you have in Germany a strategy of national security as a legal document?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
We have a white book.
White book.
Yeah, we have a white book.
Or white paper. Which
yeah, it's a white, we call it white book. And for sure, and we are already working now because this has to be updated to the...
How often do you use it? I mean, how often do you update it?
It depends on the situation, you know.
Not each year, it depends from situation.
It depends on
which
situation.
Surrounds your country, yeah?
But maybe overall, every 5, 6, 7, 8 to 10 years, it needs to be really updated from the scratch. And you can imagine after German reunification, it was a major update because we could not use much of the old one. But it gets now already currently updated to the current threats and the current security environment which we see worldwide.
Okay, I want to show the next video, video number 2. On this video, we may see the Block API protests. The Block API protest is a marker which shows the smart power war against Germany has started. It's my mind. The war has come to Germany. To prove my words, Rainer Wendt said that demonstrants are ready to use violence if their main goal is to attack a state covered by capitalism critics. What do you say about it?
Yeah, it was a very critical situation. That is true in Frankfurt because there is located the European Central Bank. But you know, it went a little bit out of control because, as I think personally, maybe nobody estimated that it will be this violence. And so parts of our security forces, maybe they have been surprised, but it went never out of control. And as far as I know, nobody was killed in these demonstrations. They were violent, that is true. But we had
550 persons was arrested
from
demonstrants, and 88 persons was injured from police side.
Yeah, that is true. But we had this kind of violent demonstrations in Germany also 30 years ago, because demonstrations are part of the democracy, and unfortunately not all demonstrators follow these rules of peaceful demonstration. And as you know, the participants of this demonstration, because it was not directed against Germany, it was directed against the policy of the European Central Bank. They came from whole Europe, and you know, through modern...
By bus. Like in Ukraine,
exactly.
Our titushki from another part. Yeah.
They were very organized in the news, you know, also these new medias, and they're really surprised, for sure, our security forces. And as you said, the amount of injured policemen were very high. But I would not overestimate this incident. This is also part of a democracy, that you accept demonstrations, for sure not violent ones, but they want to make a signal. And as I said, these black blocs, radicals came from whole Europe together, and they meet each other on different buses and roads in Frankfurt.
Yeah, it's a part of democracy.
Yeah.
You talk about that for policemen of your country, it was surprise. What would you do on the next time if a lot of buses, for example, it would be not 600 buses?
Yeah.
What would you do, police forces or task forces, to prevent this?
Yeah, I think, as you know, the borders in the Schengen room in Europe, they are often.
Yeah, you have no borders.
We have only, you know, some undercover control, but no official border crossing control anymore. And I think our security forces are warned, and next time they will prevent, I think, this kind of violence. But on the other hand, I can even, as a citizen, I'm not talking as a German defense attaché, as a citizen, I can understand this protest against the policy.
Yeah, can you explain us, because we don't know about it?
Yeah, because, for example, it was a decision of the European Central Bank to print more than 1 billion euros to buy bonds from states in Europe of the European Union which are under very high pressure and have much debt. And many people are against that, and they should show that they do not agree with this policy, which is for many people dangerous, but for sure not in a violent way, because that is not part of a democracy if you use violence, which makes any sense in that case. Yeah.
I'm sure that you know history of our revolution last year. We don't want to make a revolution. First of all, we have proof that we want to go to European Union.
Yes.
We want to go to European Union. Our president don't sign an agreement, so we have a protest. Do you see the strong linkage between the protest for different reason and hybrid war?
Yeah, I think many people said after you launched this very successful pro-European and pro-Western revolution, I think it was not planned. It developed on its own.
It's maybe not planned for demonstrants, but it's planned maybe in Kremlin or another country, Washington or Brasilia.
No, I think I was there during your Maidan revolution, and I think it was not planned. For sure, European countries supported this pro-Western ideas.
It was not planned by then used, not for Ukrainian people.
Yeah. But for sure, I heard then that Donbass, for example, that is the answer on the Euro Maidan, because that is a hybrid war, which maybe was planned as the answer of this pro-European Maidan revolution.
Петр Маринин вооружился линейкой, циркулем и штабной картой образца мая 1945 года. И вот что у него получилось.
Варшава – это слишком просто. От Москвы до польской столицы всего 1300 километров. Танк Т-90, например, если не прибегать к помощи транспортной авиации, войдет в пригороды меньше, чем через сутки после начала марша. К этому времени бойцы ВДВ, им на переброску нужно всего 2 часа, успеют провести репетицию, отдохнуть, сварить праздничную кашу с тушенкой и отгладить парадную форму. Кажется, нас давно не было в Берлине. 9 мая – отличный повод для дружеского визита. 1800 километров для современной армии – не расстояние. Тем более, многие русские офицеры неплохо знают Германию, им там даже карта не потребуется. Главное, чтобы они на автомате не заняли наши военные городки, которые после объединения ФРГ и ГДР достались немцам. Прага, Хельсинки, Вильнюс, Таллин, Рига – это вообще совсем рядом. В половину из этих городов праздничные русские солдаты могут выдвинуться и вовсе пешим порядком, как уже было 70 лет назад. Визит в Лондон и Вашингтон, конечно, придется планировать сильно заранее. Без авиации и флота тут никак не обойтись. Но до мая еще есть времени, так что заявки принимаются. Армия у нас большая, на всех хватит, да еще для Москвы останется. Жалко только, что наши западные партнеры не смогут своими глазами посмотреть на Искандер и Сатану, ведь их за пределы России можно доставить только по воздуху.
How do you classify this action according to the national security strategy, or, like you say, white book? How do you classify these actions? You talk about demonstrants, you talk about a part of democracy, but your democracy, it's like weapon. Today it's stopped, next day it will play.
So you mean
Against
how
you.
I describe this Maidan revolution in the background?
It was not evolution.
Yeah.
First of all, it was a strong wish to be
Yeah.
a part of Europe.
Yeah.
German government, French government, you talk about that Ukraine has to be a part of Europe.
Yeah.
When we really want, when we really do some actions to be a part, you close the door, you show us your back, and we stay alone with Russian Federation, with Russian beer.
Yeah, yeah, I accept your opinion, but I have it quite opposite opinion, because Germany is, I think, per capita export world championship, not only in football, but only in export. And you know that we were, I think, trade partner #1 for Russia before all this event happens.
Yes,
So, and-
$323 billion.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then we launched the sanctions, and our trade with Russia went down really dramatically. But the German population, and especially the German government, is ready to take these losses, which are many, many billions, to support your integration, because there is no fast way to Europe. First, we have to share the same values and have nearly also the same standards. You know, it's really a long way, and we all know that this association and free trade agreement, they made a big thing of it, but it was only a small
steps.
step
Yeah.
of more integration and more standard and more open thing, which would not change so many things. It was not a danger, and I think it was not a threat against Russian Federation or anybody else. It was only a small step, and nobody knew what would be the benefits, because first of all, the Ukrainian people, they have to work very, very hard, to reach the goals which they set on their own, because they set on their own, we want to have a European standard, because for me, you're an integral part of Europe. And as I know, you're even not on the edge, like Ukraine said, you're not on the edge of Europe, you're an integral part of Europe. As far as I know, 3 of the middle points of Europe, one is in the Carpat Mountains, the geographic centers of Europe. So for me, you are truly a European country. But for sure you have...
Thank you, it's official position. Do you hear?
Yeah, but for sure you still have this heritage from the Soviet Union, and that is my personal opinion. You have to get rid of that and find your own values and your own standards, which cannot be the standards of the Soviet Union. That's the reason why the Soviet Union collapsed on its own, because it was not built on solid ground.
Yeah. The next controversial question is following one. Sun Tzu said that if you want to live in peace, you should be prepared for war. How do you estimate that the USA and the United Kingdom sent military instructors and weapons for Ukraine? Do we want war or peace? Are we prepared for war or for peace? As for example, Sarah Wagenknecht identified this action as actions that undermine the peace process.
Eine hochgefährliche, halbhegemoniale Stellung, in die die Bundesrepublik wieder hineingerutscht ist, in alter deutscher Manier rücksichtslos auszuspielen. Das schreibt Ihnen und der gesamten Bundesregierung der Philosoph Jürgen Habermas ins Stammbuch. Und er meint damit vor allem, aber nicht nur, den demütigenden Umgang mit Frankreich. Am 25. Mai sind bei den Europawahlen in Frankreich der Front National von Marine Le Pen stärkste politische Kraft geworden. Auch in anderen europäischen Ländern haben nationalistische, rechtspopulistische, teils offen faschistische Kräfte wie die Goldene Morgenröte in Griechenland kräftig zugelegt. Wenn das nicht als Weckruf taugt, dass es in Europa nicht so weitergehen kann wie bisher, worauf wollen Sie dann noch warten? Darauf, dass Frau Le Pen französische Präsidentin wird?
Controversial questions.
Yes, first of all, I think the Ukrainian population appreciate a lot that, for example, United States and UK is supporting you with military advisors, to be honest, on a very, very low level. As I know, there are from UK 50 who are going to your units, and also from
50?
the 50 military advisors, and 25 will stay here to organize it all. And from the United States, I think from the 20th of April, they will start in Yavoriv to train a few companies and battalions of the National Guard. That is a very, very small help, but it is a help for sure, and don't overestimate it and make it too big. And both countries, until now, they will not deliver lethal weapons. But to come back to Germany, you know, I think for you is very crucial because a few weapons will not change your situation. And you know what the propaganda will make of a few weapons which would be delivered from Germany to here. Mm-hmm. But that the diplomatic channel is open for you, I think that is really, really crucial. And you know that our highest representative, our Bundespräsident, on the anniversary of Maidan, he marched with your president on Maidan. You know how many hours our chancellor is dedicating to the future of your country, and how often she was here in Kiev or in Minsk, or talking on very high level together with the second biggest European nation on the continent, France, and also with Poland in a concert to solve this problem. And the main approach of Germany, especially due to our history, is to do everything on the diplomatic level to solve this problem.
Okay. Okay. What prevents German politicians to take decisions concerning the military help that are so necessary for Ukraine?
Yeah.
Because we know that your society, political society, is separated for some parts.
No, you know, as I said, we focus because we are concerning military, not a big power like United States or even like UK and
Global
France.
Power.
They have more capabilities and more experience in Africa and other countries. Mm-hmm. So we focus, as we said, on diplomatic, economical and financial help. And please remember the humanitarian convoy which Germany launched, and I think this was a tremendous help. Think about the refugee camps which we built near the Donbas region for your refugees, and I hope soon there will be also full the capacity because it's until now not all the capacity is used. So we are focusing on that, and as I said, when you talk about European help, you know that Germany is really providing a big part of this European help. So we stand side by side you on the diplomatic path, on the financial and economical, and that is our main focus. And other nations like the United States, they are more capable to help you, as you said and mentioned, on the military side, but they do it also, as I see, very diplomatically and not on a blunt way. So they are taking also all circumstances because it's a very dangerous situation. And you know how a world war started. When I remember the First World War, and I think nations and governments in Europe learned of that. But at that time, it was enough to kill the crown prince in Sarajevo, the future emperor. It was enough to ignite with different mobilization and anything a world war. And everybody wants to prevent that because it is a dangerous situation and you never know what comes out. And you know that Ukraine will be the country would suffer most if there would be new escalation round of this conflict between Russia and Ukraine and Donbas.
Okay, I want to show the video number 3, the third video. On this video, we will see the protest in using the special gas from police forces against demonstrants. It's picture like our special forces was called Berkut and demonstrants in Maidan. In this particular, I want to ask you, what is your position about the possibility of Putin's spring attack?
I think if you ask me as a military, it is very dangerous, you know, to talk too much about the spring attack. I know that is in the mass medias around. What I see is a constant pressure which you have almost on the whole front in Donbas. Yeah, it starts in the Luhansk region, Shastia and so on. It continues in the Donetsk airport region and Pisky. It goes all the way down to Mariupol and Shirokine. So I see limited power, and I think in the last weekend again 9 Ukrainian soldiers died in the field. So I see a constant pressure, and it could be, because it's very hard to estimate, that beginning of 11, 12 or whatever, mid of May, this pressure could increase maybe in the Donetsk and Luhansk region. But I do not see a big swing offensive, because I think also on the so-called pro-Russian illegal armed group sides and the separatists, their limited capabilities, they cannot launch any offensive. They need really then more support, and I do not see the willingness, and I think it would be for Russia also counterproductive to support them more than they are doing right now already.
So you don't think that, for example, Russian Federation go to your border? We don't say about only Ukraine, because in your Deutsche Welle and your mass media broadcasting company, you talk about separatists, about conflict in East Ukraine, but indeed it's a conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's a conflict between European values and Russian values. For example, for me, you have to realize that Ukraine, it's not dead end for Russia.
Yeah.
It's only one of point.
Yeah.
They want to, for example, if we're talking about Zhirinovsky, he said about Europe, he said about France, he said about Germany, he said about Poland, and so on. So if we lose Ukraine, as you say, as a part of Europe, we lose Europe in all.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
No, it's right that you have to see the big picture. And I was in 2008 in Georgia, when on the 8th of August that was this military conflict. And at the end, the Russian Federation finished the occupation of Abkhazia and South Ossetia there. And so that is also, Georgia was at that time, a country which said we share the Western values, we want to get closer to Europe. And this country, Georgia, also has a border to a NATO nation, Turkey. And it borders also to the Black Sea, and it's very near to Sochi. And many experts, it's not rocket science, the ex-president of Georgia, Saakashvili, after 2008 always said the next country will be Ukraine. And at the end, he was proved right.
Yeah.
So we see the big picture, and you know what...
Maybe because Europe closed her eyes and stepped back, because Georgia lost 20% of their territory, and Europe say nothing, because Europe don't want to have a war with Russia.
That is right. Europe doesn't want to have a war on Georgian or Ukrainian territory against Russia, because we all know how devastating that can be. But we supported Germany in the concert of the European Union after this conflict, Georgia, and we're still supporting Georgia. And we will do the same with Ukraine. If you launch your reforms and you change your structures, as I said, it's not what we tell you, that is what you found out on your own.
That is what we want, yeah.
What you want.
Yeah.
It is what
sure.
we only assist and help you on your way. And major is, to be more successful. Mm-hmm. And I see also, what NATO is doing in the Baltic states, what Germany is also supporting Poland, and we see the big picture. But the main thing is a political, diplomatic, and economical solution. And I'm convinced, in Germany we were divided for more than 40 years, but we kept patient. And we showed the eastern part of Germany what means a successful, economical, successful democratic system in which the values of the people and also the right is accepted by most of all and also followed. And if you follow the same path, I'm sure that the Crimean will come on their knees and say, let us be part of Ukraine again, because you have to make really your reforms, launch them successful in your task.
Successful reforms is the key of our...
It's a key, and then you will be example. Yeah. And I think in Georgia it will be the same. That is my personal opinion, That on one day, like in Germany was reunified, also Abkhazia and South Ossetia may be again a part
Knock, knock, open
where
the
they
door.
belong
Yeah.
internationally, because
Okay.
Crimea and Donbass are internationally still part of Ukraine.
Historically part of Ukraine. And last our question, Helmut Schmidt said that the NATO as an instrument of US world hegemony. How can you comment this statement?
You know, I think NATO is a most successful military alliance of all human history, and NATO is not aggressive. They never launched aggressive action, and it's, you know, 28 nations have to agree. And even if Georgia or Ukraine would be in membership action plan or later part of NATO, at the end is a decision of all countries what they do to support you. So it's a very open, it's not a bloc, it's not a dictatorship, and it's not a threat to anybody. And not NATO expanded, you know, it's like nations like Georgia, Ukraine, at one time they decided
They want to provide their security.
we want to be
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
It's not that NATO is coming to you, because
Yeah.
NATO is not a country or a dictatorship. NATO is only an alliance which has a general secretary and an organization, but NATO is mainly 28 nations, and they all have their own, sometimes very different opinions about worldwide policy and also what happens in Ukraine or in other countries.
Okay, I want to express gratitude to my guest, German Defense Attaché in Kiev, Christian Farkande. The main conclusions of our conversation are the following. Not militiamen rebels are fighting at the east of Ukraine, but local bandits, terrorists and mercenaries from the Russian Federation, in particular the units of the internal military forces of Russian Federation. German side evaluates highly the actions of Ukrainian governments, the President of Ukraine and the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, concerning regulation of the crisis and containment of the Russian aggression. The civilized world supports Ukraine and carries out the complex of measures. The government of Germany doesn't remain uninvolved. The Western world should find a possibility to enlarge the help for Ukraine, first of all to help Ukraine with armament. Nowadays, the future of Europe is being determined at the Russian-Ukrainian border. The Russian Federation carries out the aggressive informational campaign against the European Union in the context of events in Ukraine using different methods. For example, in the case of foreign televiewers, the Russia propaganda is being concealed by the use of the source, which is alternative to Western media broadcasting. In return, there was a proposition to straighten the European international media through the creation and support of Ukraine Tomorrow channel and also Deutsche Welle, BBC International and RFI. The core message is the following one. Propaganda can be countered only like an ideal objective, educational and pluralistic coverage. If we want to live in peace, we should be able to provide our national security, including hard power and lethal weapons. It was Vladimir Lipkan, Doctor of Law, Smart Ukraine. Stay with us.